The global order is changing at a faster pace than it has at any time in contemporary political history. And to try and make sense of this fast-changing new world, we're joined by one of the world's top risk gurus. Ian Bremmer joins us from Washington, D.C., president, founder of the Eurasia Group, and a man who really understands the ins and outs of what's going on in Washington at this moment. Mr. Bremmer, thank you for your time. I want to start by asking you about President Trump and India, because Prime Minister Modi and Trump had a bilateral meeting, lots of chatter around how successful that meeting was relative to the last times that President Biden and Modi met Trump. So first and foremost, your sense of where India figures in Washington's perspective and prism at this moment, given all that's happening in the world right now.
Well, you and I have discussed this before, and before Trump became president, I was of the view that India was one of the very few countries in the world that was in a very strong geopolitical position, whether Trump or Kamala Harris won the presidency. I still hold that view. Modi's meeting with Trump has been one of the most successful of any of the bilateral meetings he's had with any countries around the world. Part of that is because the U.S.-China relationship is going to get worse. Trump intends to create a trading bloc with like-minded countries that will decouple core supply chains, resources, and advanced technologies away from China, containing China. China's not going to like that, but that makes India an important partner. Certainly, the United States wants a stronger defense relationship with India. They also want to sell, of course, more American military componentry and hardware. They want a closer technology relationship with India, and they want India to be more aligned with American technology firms and standards. Also, you know that Prime Minister Modi has been willing to reduce U.S. Tariffs to get more reciprocal with the United States. Trump has appreciated that. They've also been willing to take some illegal immigrants from the United States back into India. Trump has appreciated that. This isn't going to be easy. Every country, even friendly ones, are going to find that Trump is going to drive a hard bargain, especially when it comes to economics and trade. But I think that Modi's India is probably in as good a position as anyone outside, certainly any major economy. The Saudis, the Emiratis, the Israelis, they have stronger relations with Trump. But of the big economies in the world, India is in the best position.
It's interesting that you say it, because a lot of the optics from an Indian perspective haven't been all that ideal. The fact that on the day that Prime Minister Modi was in Washington, D.C., President Trump did that big press conference literally hours before he met him, where he targeted India by name. And there was no state dinner, unlike the last time when he went to meet President Biden. And even repeatedly, he seems to be attacking India on the question of trade. These immigrants coming back, I'm sure you followed, because they've been shackled, their turbans taken off. It's become a big political issue back home. So looked at particularly from a political prism, the optics haven't been very good. So it's interesting that you're saying that the relationship is as good as can be, because from an Indian opposition perspective, they're saying, just look at how badly India is being treated.
I accept all of that, Rahul. And of course, specifically the optics around the illegal detainees going back in shackles, which was also an issue for Colombia, some other countries. That's been figured out with transit through third countries. But you're right that Trump is not treating any countries around the world very easily right now. I mean, it's as good as can be, doesn't mean as warm as you'd like. Trump, of course, is surrounded by loyalists in his cabinet. Everyone's telling him how brilliant he is, what a genius he is. No one's pushing back. He has the House, he has the Senate. The Republicans in both are, lining up, and they're supporting all of his candidates. They're not voting against, even if they're incapable. America's in a much stronger position. Trump's much more convinced he's right. So I agree with you, Rahul, that it has been a bumpier road for India than in the first Trump term. But compared to any other country, you look at Canada or Mexico, you look at the European Union, you look at, certainly China, or smaller countries like Panama and Denmark, which are really taking it in the chin right now. No one would argue that Trump and Modi are best friends. Trump sees Modi as a carrier of right-wing, nationalist, populist sentiment that is part of a Trump wave that he sees, including leaders like Giorgia Meloni from Italy, like Viktor Orban from Hungary, like Javier Milei from Argentina, like Nayib Bukele from El Salvador. And of course, in that regard, India is the largest, the most successful country, both in terms of economic growth and the popularity of its prime minister, that is aligned ideologically with Trump, that, is in a sense a purveyor of Trumpism. And Modi certainly leaned into that when the two men met face to face. But this is a less transactional Trump. It's a more revolutionary Trump. It's a more predatory Trump because he's more confident, because he has fewer checks and balances, and also because he has Elon Musk around him that's capable of executing policy in an unprecedented way. There was no one like that in Trump's first term. So again, I accept that from India's perspective, this doesn't look easy.
What are you hearing about that bilateral trade agreement between Washington and Delhi? Talks are supposed to finish by fall. That's a very tight deadline, given that they've gone through 2 terms negotiating the agreement and nothing came of it. How do you think talks are likely to go? And he's spoken of retaliatory tariffs being implemented from the 1st of April. Is that just a negotiating tactic and a threat, or do you think he'll push through, and if so, in what form and shape?
I do think that when you're talking about friends, the retaliatory framework is meant to get them to the table with a better deal, with offering more, with lowering your own tariffs, with opening your own market, with buying more defense equipment from the U.S., with engaging in a more integrated fashion on technology. It's like what Trump is doing on Mexico and Canada. You'll remember he declared there were going to be 25% tariffs across the board, and then the day before he had phone calls with the leaders of both countries. Then he kicked the can down the road. Now he's doing it again with the date of March 4th. Pretty much everyone expects that there will be a similar dynamic in play. So this is very different from what Trump did on China, where he announced 10% tariffs, and there wasn't a phone call. There was an intention to impose 10% tariffs, and he did. Now he announced another 10 by March 4th, and I expect that those additional 10 will be implemented. In other words, this is a negotiating pattern as opposed to a punitive set of measures that will be implemented no matter what.